Hi, I'm Karen Stevens, Electronic Arts First Director Accessibility, and welcome to the GAC 2021 talk, Treading the Game Accessibility Trend, in which I'll share my own experiences regarding building an accessibility team at EA, which may be useful to those traveling down a similar path, along with tips to keep your head above water when things become overwhelming. So let's move back a little bit. To give a bit of backstory, in 2018, I gave a game accessibility conference talk calling Ramping Up Accessibility, where I discussed details of how I created my role as to what was then known as EA Sports Accessibility Lead, highlighting some steps I took to become the first full-time accessibility specialist in any game studio. You can more or less consider this talk type of part two. It's more of a continuation of where my previous one left off. But to give a recap, so this context makes sense, my journey started with a game jam I won in 2014, which in turn led to accessibility features in Madden NFL 17. This included features for colorblind support, brightness contrast controls, optional in-game iconography enlargement, and more. After Madden NFL 17's release in 2016, I created a Twitter account to gather feedback on the features. You may be familiar with this account. It's called EA_accessible. I still use it to this day. I had gamers reach out to me and ask if I could take feedback from other games as well. I said, sure, that's a great idea. And then started taking on a snowballing amount of work. This rather quickly led to a variety of things, including internal email lists that gathered contacts across the company and actually touched most game teams, so I was able to give them feedback. And it also resulted in me creating an internal website that acted as an information repository. And to this day, we are still working on variations of that site. This site included reported issues, answers to questions, best practices, and more. So after I showed that accessibility was really important and our gamers were interested in it, I was asked in 2017 to become EA Sports Accessibility Lead, which led to advancements across the EA Sports franchises. So at the time of the previous talk, I had managed to create the first full-time role in any game studio for accessibility, but I was simply a team of one, and I focused primarily on sports and had minimal ad hoc support of games outside of sports. Now, fast forwarding to the present, I've gone from being the EA Sports Accessibility Lead, acting alone, to the Director of Accessibility as of 2020, leading a growing team of now 6 and working with other teams across the company. Everyone on my team is wonderful, and I am so lucky to have them. They have great ideas of how we can integrate into existing teams and partner with other teams far beyond what I originally considered. I am also so fortunate to have supportive management who gave us headcount, doubling the size of my team just this year alone. Yes, this was a journey in itself, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pull off anywhere near as much as I've managed to thus far, and there is still a very long way to go. Moving out of sports into Central was not automatic. I reached out to others in the company for advice, including the vice president I currently report to, while looking for a better spot for my team. At the time we moved over, we were a team of 3. My team is now in a group called Development Technologies and Solutions. Then once we found a home, I had to then also convince sports to let my team go. This was more challenging than I expected. I had to assure them that we would give priority and support and would strive to continue to push their quality forward. We would not be abandoning sports by moving to Central. It was simply, we'd be getting additional responsibilities too. Of course, the catch there is headcount, of course. But overall, this is a great problem to have that sports wanted to keep us, as it meant that upper management in sports wants accessibility efforts to continue. Headcount overload was overwhelming. At one near breaking point, I went to a senior vice president, it's not my manager, but above them, and different groups, and said, decide if you want to support accessibility or not, and let me know. I've had enough of this, maybe yes, maybe no. It was impossible to do what we needed to do with the number of people we had. Thank goodness I got yes as an answer. It is not possible to support the entire company, which has 5 figures worth of people, with only 3 people, even if we were to leverage other teams in my overall organization. In order to grow the team, I managed to have others under my manager transferred to my team. And these individuals I had already known about previously and already were known to have a strong passion for accessibility and some background in this space. And they already had enough information that they can hit the ground running. Internal transfers are way less work than getting new headcount hired in. So there was a lot less paperwork, a lot less red tape, and made it more feasible to grow. We did actually have 1 job opening the last year for 1 new headcount, but most newer positions were literally just direct transfers within my manager's organization. I currently have an ongoing joke with my manager during all of this that I'm happy to rant about how awesome my team is at any time. Let's just say I very passionately gush over all the great things they are working on. My team is a very diverse group of skill sets. Usually teams at EA tend to be groups of the same type of skill sets. So like you have an engineering group, or you have a QA group, or have that. My team is a bit of everything under the sun. It currently consists of a business analyst, user researcher, quality designer, technical writer, and engineer. They know so much more than I and many of their respective job families, and I work with them to figure out the best ways for all of us to grow in terms of career. I firmly believe in building careers, not holding jobs. I'm very open about this, and we work together to increase each other's skill sets. One way I do this is at the end of our weekly one-on-ones with each member, I ask them to teach me something about their position that I may not already know, and something about their skill set I may not already know, which helps us all grow. To greatly oversimplify my team members' individual roles, the business analyst handles things like quantitatively measuring accessibility status for both internal products and competitor analysis. Although competitor analysis may be a bit of a misleading term, EA is specifically not competing in accessibility. And the company has opened up accessibility-related patents and source code to be used royalty-free. With the first code released in 2017 during my GDC talk on Madden NFL's 17's accessibility features. Anyway, the business analyst helps us determine what direction we should take in product development based on industry-wide data points. One of the most challenging aspects is that even though I know deeply that game accessibility is the right thing for the world, in the business world, return on investment matters very much. Yes, it's the right thing to do, but it's a far more compelling argument if you can back it up in other ways. This doesn't actually have to be dollar amounts though. Press reports, magazine articles, Twitter feedback, providing examples of what other companies are doing in their games, all of these contribute to the concept of ROI. Having a business analyst on staff helps a lot when figuring these things out. So to move on to another team member, the user researcher takes user feedback that's posted to the ea.com/able/forums, the EA_accessible Twitter, playtesting, other sources, and uses this to put together accessibility-related product roadmaps. These roadmaps can then be used for both short and long term to figure out how we could best develop the games, how we can get the most progress, figure out what's low-hanging fruit and what's something we need to work towards over years. This is not a simple one-step thing. This is a journey, a long journey, and that's perfectly okay. The important thing is to have progress. The quality analyst helps communicate issues specifics to game teams directly, such as possible bugs that need attention, or to handle accessibility questions from game team quality analysts. The technical writer also creates the vast majority of what you'll find on ea.com/able, including game highlight articles and feature article lists. She also works on internal documentation, including the internal information repository I already mentioned, and many, many other things. The engineer focuses on technological solutions, both on internal tools and external products. He's worked on things like adding gameplay narration to Madden NFL 21, and it's also added screen reading support to some internal development tools. Like I said, this is a massive oversimplification. For example, the business analyst has a master's degree in marketing and excels in market trends, workflow diagrams, and so much more. I have seen her create absolutely amazing diagrams in 15 minutes, and there is no way I could have done anything that fast. The technical writer underwent training to also be able to publish documents to ea.com, which has helped deal with the publishing team backlog, which has been one of our biggest challenges, is the fact that we have given so much more for the publishing team to do. So we're trying to help them mitigate that and working on long-term solutions to get our documents published to the world faster. The user researcher also acts a bit like a producer, which is in line to some of his past experiences. Multiple of us are working on process improvements, roadmaps, and so much more. We have lots of overlap in our jobs, and we manage that very carefully. Most of us are openly disabled, myself included, and we use both learned and lived experiences in everything we do. Lived experiences matters very much. Also, my team strives to be as fully accessible as possible, which is a great mindset to be in, as it trickles into everything that we do. All team documents, including internal websites, emails, like literally anything, are colorblind friendly, screen reader friendly, and so on. All meetings are captioned, and all notable actions or items shown on camera are audio described, such as, I'm holding out a water bottle to the screen. By doing this, we create as inclusive an environment as possible for everyone, which matters more to me than anything else. Accessibility is a mindset and should be included in everything we do. The journey in creating this team has been challenging, and there have been many pitfalls along the way and things that didn't go as well as we hoped. Doing something that has never been done before in the industry at scale is challenging. Convincing others that a new topic should now be a priority is challenging. My secret to persevering and keeping my head above water as much as possible is resilience. Resilience can be defined by the ability to endure adversity and bounce back from any adverse thing in life may throw your way. There have been many challenges that we have all faced during this COVID pandemic in particular. Many of us are juggling the reality of working from home in isolation, or maybe you have pets, children, or other household distractions to contend with, making focus extra challenging. I have a dog that frequently crashes meetings, and I can only hope I get through this recording before her next interruption. Previous takes weren't so fortunate, so here's to crossing fingers I get through this one. And if you see a happen guest later in this presentation, you have been forewarned. So we've also had to deal with many forms of grief during this challenging time, of being separated through loved ones, from missing or postponing major life events such as weddings, missing family gatherings, or even funerals. It's affected me greatly as well. I've had multiple relatives pass on during this period, and even just a few days before the day I'm recording this talk now, I missed a memorial service for my 35-year-old cousin who died from COVID. And that's the second service I've missed for a cousin this month, different cousins. So with the my poor lung function, I can't risk a cross-country trip, even though I've already had my vaccines. So it's been tough, and it's been tough on lots of us. I wasn't even sure at first if I'd be able to be in the right mental state to give this talk, especially one that doesn't use my usual slide format. It's very unusual for me to write a speech or give a speech. I'm ad-libbing half of this, but still, that is not my usual way of operating. So, especially I put behind all this one that touches on resilience. However, My manager, team members, friends, and even my therapist and many others said, but Karen, you have constantly demonstrated resilience and you should explain how you've managed to persevere and grow your team. Even with everything that life has thrown your way these past years, even with COVID and the pandemic and everything else going on and all the challenges in your family. And I realized they did have a point. And it's okay to not always be okay. So here we are. Finding ways to cope with life in general is important. I do see a therapist, which I find helpful. If nothing else, she pushes me to make time for myself. Self-care is very important. Hobbies can help, and I love arts and crafts along with reading fiction. And I try to find time for these types of hobbies and other periods of relaxation, even if my schedule feels overloaded. I also strongly encourage my team to have a healthy work-life balance, and we do our best to manage scope to avoid overloading ourselves in work. This does mean we have tiers of support for different franchises, meaning some franchises get more attention than others, but our mental health is important. And if we are to be able to do our best, we have to not be burned out. I strongly wish to avoid anyone on my team from burning out. However, I will admit the common joke of my team is that I'm the only one allowed to burn out, which my people on my team call me out frequently and say, basically, take your own advice. I admit though, they have a point. So in order to prove the need for an accessibility team, I had to be willing to take on way more work that was reasonable for an extended period of time, because I had to show that all these different types of work were necessary. That can be a very hard habit to break. And even after I had to start ramping people up and figuring out what parts of my job to split off, it was challenging. So part of my challenging work-life balance is letting go. When I was alone, focusing only on sports, I was basically doing the work of everyone on the team, myself, and then some. Roadmaps, user feedback, website articles, technical solutions, and more. It was all just me. Now, granted, it was mostly sports, but that was still a lot of games. And I'm sure you've heard there is no I in Teams, and I have run teams before when I was at Microsoft. So, but this is extra challenging because my team is so diverse. I have to figure out lots of job families I'm not very familiar with, which can be challenging. Figuring out how others can best fit into roles is challenging. Letting go and allowing others to shine, trusting things will work out, is challenging and so worth it. Learning is a lifelong activity, and my team members and I learn from each other. I'm open and honest about not knowing their full skill sets in the sense that I know where they fit by my plan, but I don't necessarily know everything they have to offer. And I encourage them to teach me all the skills they have, even those I wasn't originally expecting based on my drafted plan. Plans can change, and that's okay. Letting go is one of the key skills of resilience, and finding that right balance takes time. It's true that in game development, many features, designs, plans find themselves on the cutting room floor. It can hurt when features related to accessibility are on this list, especially if it's something I myself would be using. Sometimes plans can be changed, but sometimes it's a matter of acceptance. Acceptance of something you're so passionate about, not working out as you hoped, can be very difficult, especially when the feature is something I would personally use. However, one thing I would like you all to keep in mind is that even if something is cut, this doesn't mean the story is anywhere near over. It's still at the beginning. By planting that idea of those features in someone's mind, there's a much better chance that you'll come up with a way to do this later. Maybe it is resurrected as a patch. Maybe it's in a future franchise iteration, or maybe it's in a different game entirely. As people move between teams, between games, between studios, so do ideas. And as people see the ideas of others, they're more likely to use them in their own products. This is true of anything, and game accessibility too. Also, when things don't go the way I had hoped, it also helps if I focus on why I have chosen accessibility as my career. The simple answer is I want to help people. However, it's so much more than that. Let's go into my own personal backstory a bit. Back to when I was a child. I've been disabled my entire life with multiple issues. My asthma and allergies were particularly out of control as a child, and so many things could throw me into a severe asthma attack. It could be exercise, like if they tried to put me in gym, which I was taken out of multiple times, eventually permanently. Cold air, which was a problem because I lived in Michigan. Allergies, I'm allergic to so many different types of things, it's silly. And especially outdoor allergies, and so much more. Granted, all of that's still true, but I've learned how to live my life in particular ways where most don't realize my level of issues. Also, I moved to Florida. That helped a lot. Warm, moist air, way better than dry air. So basically, I'm fine. When I was a kid, children were not accepting of those with differences, and I was treated as if I had the plague, or if you want to use common terms, current terms, as if I had an active COVID infection. To put the perspective on current events. To this day, I am strongly against all forms of bullying, but I do recognize that much of childhood building is drawn from fear. I wish to help bring kids together in a way that gives them common ground. Games have the power to do this, especially with robust accessibility features. I want to teach others, especially kids, that it's okay to be different, and it's okay to be able to do the same things differently. Community is important, and games bring people together. I want everyone to be able to experience games with their family and friends. There are stigmas around disabilities even now. I want to break the stigmas and show that it's okay to be different. Being disabled does not mean I have any less value as a person. I simply do things differently. For example, I use captions for all spoken words as I'm deaf, but thanks to lip reading, auto captioning software, I even have auto captioning software on my phone, which during COVID and everyone wearing masks, I'm using all the time when I'm like at the grocery store or anything. And even then, it's still challenging, but it seriously helps. I can typically manage meetings just fine, for example, with auto captioning. My hands also have multiple issues, but accessibility features such as avoidance of quick time events, button mashing, and more means that I can still play with my friends and do constantly, as much as I possibly can. Lived experiences count. Learning from others with lived experiences is also very valuable. Many of my friends I play online also have various issues. I have a friend who has low vision, which affects his ability to see dimly lit games. I also have a friend with issues around simulation sickness who has trouble with a lot of first-person perspective games, special effects, camera effects, and things along those lines. I also have a friend with cognitive issues that makes reading difficult. It benefits greatly from iconography. And this is only a list of the people I played with yesterday. Literally yesterday, in Minecraft, we were all playing together. And while playing this game, I have found out so many things just from playing with friends, such as potion and night vision is helpful for those with low vision. Potion and beak graphics can trigger simulation sickness. Item frames are super easy for everyone to use and work really, really well in place of signs. After we replaced our written signs with icons and we just don't use written anymore at all, it's actually working out better than if we did writing in the first place, because you want to mark a chest, just slap something on the item frame that matches the chest. I have learned so much about what works and doesn't for my time playing games with friends. This on top of my own lived experiences, and also from what I've learned from others worldwide, have shaped my knowledge on game accessibility. Confidence is also helpful to maintain resilience. My first experience with game accessibility was at the tech lead for the Windows inbox game teams for Windows 7, way back when I worked at Microsoft, which at this point was over 8 years ago. This includes popular classic games such as Minesweeper, Solitaire, Spades, Hearts, Spider Solitaire, and all of the others. Checkers, yeah, there were quite a few games that came with Windows back in Windows 7 days. As these games were literally operating system components, they were required to fit, be fully as accessible as anything else in Windows. This means that they had to be playable using a Braille terminal, screen readers, and more. They were designed exactly the same as anything else in Windows. It was required to ship. I also made many changes to the game myself, such as flipping the direction of dragons in Mahjong Titans, so the red and green dragon could be distinguished by those who are colorblind. And I also did things like make a high contrast board in checkers, or spread out the cards more in some of the different modes so they could be easier to pick with a touchscreen. While at Microsoft, I also helped revamp the Microsoft accessibility standards so they were more generic, ultimately removing the exception the Xbox and game teams had on meeting those standards, because originally the excuse was, but we're not a PC. For example, instead of saying mouse, say cursor or pointing device, genericize everything. Granted, some games do now use a mouse on the Xbox, but that was not the case at the time. And now it really hits me that I've been in the game industry for over 16 years. Yeah, time flies. So I know I'm experienced in this topic, and I've been doing this for a very long time. And part of the resilience is knowing you have worth. You are enough. You do not have to have my level of knowledge. You do not have to be founder of a topic. And even I fully admit there is lots out there I don't know. That's okay. That's future potential. I have never stopped learning. I learn more every day as I play more games and learn more about people's experiences. I am always willing to consider viewpoints that may contradict the things I've said in the past, because flexibility is also the key to resilience, and it's also the key to growing. Although, as I've said in the past, no team sits down and says, let's design games people can't play. It is important to constantly learn how we can do better for our users. An example will be my original recommendation to not have wrapping menus, because they inherently, at the time, were not blind accessible because blind users couldn't tell when they were wrapping. Technically, wrapping is not really the problem. The real problem is that the menus are not narrated and there is no way to tell if they wrap. I now recommend, at the very least, menus should have an audible indication that a wrap occurs, but the screen reading is the true fix. And I am very open about that now. It's not that you can't have wrapping menus, it's that you have to have accessible wrapping menus. So being willing to change your opinions based on new evidence, you'll make better products in the long run. And at the end of the day, I know accessibility is the right thing to do. Those of us with disabilities shouldn't have to struggle with every aspect of our lives. And with gaming, it really does not have to be that way. We can do better as an industry, and we should do better as an industry. It doesn't matter how many naysayers there are or how many obstacles may be in the way. That feeling in itself, for me, will not change. So, how do I manage to roll with the punches? In short, when things aren't going my way, when things feel like they're falling apart, when I'm not sure how I'm going to get over the next obstacle, I think about why I'm doing this. I sincerely want to make games that everyone can play. And I would never willingly give that up. That is resilience. And I ask you all who are going down that same path to find what drives you and focus on that to help get past hurdles that block your path. It's often said that when there's a will, there's a way. I ask you to try to find a way. If things don't work out, try something else, but keep trying. The end goal is so worth it. And at the end of the day, to me, accessibility is just the right thing to do. Gaming is for everyone, period. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful Game Accessibility Conference. Thank you.